Have you ever trusted someone so completely, only to realize they saw you as nothing more than a convenience? I didn't know betrayal could come wrapped in something as simple as an empty jewelry box. But the day I opened mine and saw that my grandmother's emerald necklace and pearl earrings were gone, something inside me snapped. Not just from the loss of the pieces themselves, though that was crushing, but from the brutal truth that hit me. The man I'd built my life with had sold my inheritance without even asking. And when I confronted him, he looked me straight in the eyes and said, "That's what you're here for." That one sentence rewrote everything I thought I knew about our 15-year marriage. I can still feel the velvet lining of that jewelry box under my fingers, can still see the empty space where my great-grandmother's emerald necklace once lay. That necklace was more than beautiful. It was a symbol of survival. My great-great-grandmother bought it during the Great Depression, selling almost everything else she owned just so her daughter could have something to wear that made her feel like a person again. My grandmother's pearl earrings had their own story too, earned through long, brutal shifts at a factory by her father as a wedding gift. And now they were gone. Ronald didn't even flinch when I asked him about it. "My brother's business needed help," he said with a shrug, as if pawning my family's legacy was just another household errand. "Besides," he added with a sneer I'll never forget, "what's yours is mine." That was the moment everything clicked. For years I'd ignored the little signs, how he slowly distanced me from friends, took over our finances for simplicity, criticized my choices so subtly that I started doubting myself. I thought it was just the way marriage worked. But that moment, that was the unveiling. Ronald didn't see me as his partner. I was an asset, resource, a supporting role in the Ronald show. That night, while he slept like a baby next to me, I lay staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding, my mind racing. I heard my grandmother's voice echoing from years ago. "You come from women who never backed down." By morning I had made a decision. I waited for Ronald to leave for work. He kissed me goodbye like everything was fine, like he hadn't just ripped the last threads of my identity from my hands. And once the door closed, I got to work. I didn't pack everything, just the essentials. Documents, clothes, a few photos. I withdrew every cent I'd managed to save from my part-time library job, the one Ronald never took seriously enough to track. And on the kitchen counter, next to my house key, I left a note. "Help yourself to paradise." Right as I was about to leave, my phone buzzed. A text from Ronald. "Don't forget my dry cleaning. And make that pasta I like tonight." I turned the phone off, placed it next to the key. Walked out the door. No tears. Just trembling hands. And one truth ringing louder than anything else. I was done. I had no clue where I was headed. But for the first time in over a decade, I felt like I was walking in the right direction. The motel I found that night was nothing special. The room smelled like stale cigarettes and old carpet cleaner, but at least the air wasn't heavy with betrayal. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling as headlights danced across it. Every sound in the hallway made me flinch. I kept thinking Ronald would find me, that he'd somehow track me down and drag me back into the life I'd finally escaped. I didn't touch my phone. It was still off, buried deep in my purse, probably buzzing with messages I wasn't ready to read. I already knew how it would go. 15 years had taught me the cycle well. First the sweet words, then guilt, then threats. It always escalated in that exact order. I couldn't let myself get pulled back in. Instead I made lists. I had $3,200 in savings. Barely 2 months' worth of expenses if I lived frugally. My library job wasn't enough to keep me afloat long-term. Ronald had always brushed it off as my little hobby. But that hobby was about to become my lifeline. The next morning I opened a bank account in my name. Just mine. I bought a new phone under a new plan. Got a new number. Every one of those steps terrified me, but they also made me feel more alive than I'd felt in years. Like I was finally becoming someone again. Then, I did something I hadn't done in ages. I went to a coffee shop. Alone. I sat there with a single cup of coffee for hours, because I needed to save every penny, but also because I needed to remember how to be alone in the world without feeling small. At the next table, An older couple was talking about a book she'd just finished. He was hanging on her every word, smiling, asking questions like it actually mattered to him what she thought. I couldn't even remember the last time Ronald had asked me anything that didn't serve his own purpose. As I stood to leave, my new phone rang. An unfamiliar number. I almost let it go to voicemail. But then, Grace. It's Monica. Monica. My best friend from college. My voice caught in my throat. Your sister found me on Facebook, she said quickly. She told me everything. I've been trying to reach you all day. Just hearing her voice cracked something open inside me. I clutched the phone like it was a lifeline. I don't know what to do, I whispered. Yes, you do, she said, steady and fierce. You already did it. You left. Now you just need to keep going. She offered me a place to stay. 3 hours away, in a spare room she said had my name on it. I didn't say yes. Not yet. Part of me needed to know I could stand on my own, even just for a little while. Monica didn't push. Whatever you decide, she said. Don't go back. I watched you disappear once. I can't do that again. That night, back in the motel, my phone buzzed with a new message. An unknown number. But I knew who it was. I know you're scared and confused. Come home. We can fix this. I'll buy you better jewelry. Just come home. My fingers trembled. The old Grace might have been tempted. Might have clung to the hope of fixing things. But I was done fixing what someone else kept breaking. I deleted the message. No explanations. No replies. Instead, I opened my laptop and started looking for a way forward. That's when I found it. A real estate licensing course. 6 weeks. Financial aid available for women starting over. And right then, with rain hammering the motel window and thunder rolling in the distance, I applied. Storm was coming. But this time I wasn't afraid. That real estate course became my lifeline. I found a tiny studio apartment I could barely afford, started waking up at 5 a.m. to study over instant coffee, working morning shifts at the library, then attending classes every afternoon. It was exhausting, but it was mine. Every page I turned, every law I memorized, was a piece of my future being built from scratch. Carol, our lead instructor, was sharp, mid-60s, silver hair, eyes that saw everything. One afternoon she pulled me aside. Your test scores are impressive, she said. But you look like you're carrying the world on your back. Something in her tone broke through the walls I'd built. I found myself in her office, telling her everything. The stolen jewelry, the years of silence, the slow unraveling of my identity. She didn't flinch. She just listened. You know what I see in women like you, she said. Not weakness. Hunger. The ones who rebuild their lives. They're not always the smartest. But they're always the ones with something to prove to themselves. And just when I thought I was starting to breathe again, life threw me a test I hadn't studied for. One evening after class I walked to my car and saw him, Ronald, waiting. He looked different, thinner, disheveled. His suit jacket hung loose, his shoes scuffed. Grace, he said, soft and pleading. You've made your point. It's time to come home. I froze, my heart pounding. But I didn't step back. Not this time. I sold the jewelry to help my brother, he continued. It was for us. I was going to surprise you. I planned to buy something even better. I almost laughed. They weren't just things, Ronald. They were history. They were love. And you threw that away because you never bothered to ask what they meant. His expression twisted. You've changed, he said, bitterness creeping into his voice. This job, these classes, they're making you too independent. The Grace I married wouldn't have walked away. The Grace you married, I said, was scared. She thought love meant giving herself away piece by piece. But she's gone. He stepped closer, grabbed my arm, not hard, but enough to remind me of all the times he used his size, his voice, his anger to shrink me. You're nothing without me, he hissed. Who's going to want a middle-aged woman with no career, no money, no support? For a moment the words cut deep. He knew exactly where my wounds lived. But then I heard Carol's voice again. The The ones who succeed are the ones who have something to prove. I looked him in the eye and said, I do want that woman. Because she's brave enough to start over with nothing rather than live in a gilded cage. He stepped back startled. This isn't over, he muttered, but his voice didn't have its old edge. That night I barely slept. My mind kept replaying every word, every flash of fear. Around midnight, a message came from my sister Betsy. Ronald told me everything. How could you be so selfish? Mom and Dad would be ashamed. Her words hurt more than I expected. But they didn't undo me. Because the pain now felt different. Not the kind that cages you, but the kind that burns down old lies so new truths can grow. The next morning I showed up to class early. Carol took one look at my face and said, Rough night. He nodded. But I'm ready to work. She smiled. Good. Because today we're starting contract law. And I was ready. Maybe for the first time in my life. Over the next few weeks, something unexpected started happening. I wasn't just surviving, I was connecting. First it was just Diane. She was in my real estate course too, about my age. With eyes that looked like they hadn't had a good night's sleep in months. One day during our break, she turned to me and said, I left my husband 6 months ago. Found out he'd mortgaged our house behind my back. Gambled away our savings. We looked at each other and just knew. That look, that shared ache, it needed no explanation. Want to grab coffee after class? Yes. That coffee turned into a ritual. Then others joined, Maria, whose husband had an affair with her best friend. Rebecca, quiet but fierce, rebuilding from emotional abuse. Jenny, starting over after a brutal divorce. We called ourselves the Phoenix Club. It started as a joke. But slowly it became our reality. We weren't just women who'd been broken. We were women building again. But the peace didn't last. One morning Diane showed up pale and shaking. He found where I live, she said. Showed up drunk. Said he's in therapy. That he's changed. I squeezed her hand. What did you do? I called the police, she whispered. First time I ever did that. Then, as if life needed to remind me I wasn't safe yet, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your sister told me about your classes. Always knew you were sleeping with that instructor. Why else would she help you? Ronald deserves better. It was from Ellen. Ronald's mother. Showed Diane. Her hands curled into fists. You know what? We're not doing this alone anymore. Time to fight fire with fire. That afternoon she called in a lawyer friend, Lisa. A powerhouse with a stack of legal forms and a mission. First, Lisa said, you're both getting restraining orders. Second, we're documenting everything. Third, we're going to make sure you know exactly what your rights are. She laid it all out. How financial abuse was a legal issue. How selling inherited property without consent wasn't just cruel. It could be theft. We didn't have to stay quiet. We didn't have to stay scared. Later that day, Ellen showed up again, this time in person. She marched up to me in the parking lot, voice like venom. You ungrateful little witch, she hissed. Do you know what you're doing to my son? To our family's reputation? I stood taller. Thought of the Phoenix Club. Of Lisa's advice. Of every woman who'd been made to feel like she was the problem. Your reputation. I asked calmly. What about my family's legacy? The one Ronald sold off like garbage. What about the years I spent trying to please you while you treated me like I wasn't good enough? You weren't good enough, she snapped. You were a nobody, lucky to marry up. I stepped back as she reached for my arm. Don't touch me, I said. And don't come near me again. I have witnesses. And I'm not afraid to call the police. She stormed off, rage carved into her face. I went home, heart racing, but for once it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. Fire. Then Betsy called. Mom says you threatened Ellen, she said. What's happening to you? I'm standing up for myself, I replied. And if you can't support that, I need you to stay out of it. There was a pause. Then her voice softer. I just want my sister back. I am back, I said. The real me. But Ronald wasn't finished. Not even close. The morning of our first big exam, I woke to a flood of frantic messages. Check your email. Now. My heart dropped. Someone had filed an ethics complaint against Carol, my instructor, my mentor. The accusation that she was exchanging sexual favors for grades. The evidence. Photos of her and me together, twisted into something they weren't. Cafe hugs became intimate meetings. Handshakes turned into innuendo. It was Ronald. I knew it in my bones. And just like that, Carol was suspended. Our exam postponed. The whispers started. Some students backed away from me like I was poison. But not the Phoenix Club. At lunch, we huddled in our usual cafe. We fight, Maria said. We fight for her like she fought for us. Rebecca dug through her laptop. These photos were doctored. Can prove it. And look at the sender's email. It's a knockoff of Ronald's company domain. I stood up, breath steady. Then I'm going to the board. I'm done being quiet. That afternoon I told my story. All of it. The financial control. The manipulation. The threats. The fake photos. And Carol. I told them exactly who she was. Someone who saved lives. Rebecca showed the board how the photos were faked. Lisa submitted the documentation we'd gathered. And just before the hearing ended, my phone buzzed. Message from Betsy. Mom told me the truth. About Ronald. About everything. I'm so sorry. I'm on my way to you. I blinked away tears. The board dismissed the complaint. Cleared Carol. And for the first time truly I felt free. You'd think passing my licensing exam would feel like the finish line. In a way it was. But more than that, it was a beginning. I had one of the highest scores in the class. Prestigious firms were suddenly interested. One in particular stood out. A company that helped women in transition find secure housing. Felt like fate. My story had made waves. And now I had the chance to turn everything I'd been through into a mission. But life had one more twist to throw at me. Diane met me at our cafe, her expression tight. Ronald contacted me, she said. He has your grandmother's pearls. The real ones. And he says he'll return them. If you meet him. Alone. My breath caught. Those pearls, my grandmother's wedding gift promised to me, passed through generations. They were a piece of who I was. But the demand, the location, old house, screamed manipulation. Carol arrived before I could respond. You are not going in there alone, she said. If he has the pearls, we'll get them. But we'll do it smart. We formed a plan. A live feed to Rebecca's laptop. Police nearby. Diane and Maria waiting in the neighborhood. I walked up to that house with a steady heart and an earpiece in my ear. For the first time, I wasn't walking into Ronald's world. I was walking into mine with an army behind me. He opened the door, smug and fake sweet as ever. You came, he said. I knew you would. Where are the pearls? Asked. He dangled the velvet box in front of me, then held it out over the concrete steps. Come in and talk, he said. Or watch your little legacy shatter. I stared at him. The box. At the man who'd spent years trying to shrink me down until I forgot who I was. Then I said it. The legacy isn't in the pearls, Ronald. It's in me. It always was. I turned and walked away. He dropped the box. The pearls inside. Vic. Just as we suspected. The real ones were long gone. But you know what? That didn't hurt the way I thought it would. Because the truth was, I'd already reclaimed something far more valuable. Later that night, surrounded by the Phoenix Club in my apartment, I cried. Not for the jewelry. For the years I spent thinking my worth depended on someone else's permission to shine. You're free now, Diane whispered. For real this time. And she was right. A week later, I sat in Carol's office, holding a job offer from one of the top firms in the city. I was scared, of failing, of succeeding, of becoming someone Ronald never believed I could be. But then my phone buzzed again. Betsy. Mom wants to see you. Says she has something to tell you about Ronald. I found Ellen in a hospital room, smaller than I remembered her. And then, slowly, she told me the truth. About Ronald's father. About the letters he'd sent from prison. About the legacy of emotional manipulation she thought she'd protected her son from, but accidentally fed instead. I helped make him into the man who hurt you, she said. And I'm sorry. She handed me a receipt, proof that the emerald necklace hadn't been sold after all. That one piece remained. She offered to buy it back for me. Not to fix what was broken. To honor what mattered. Days later, as I met with Diane to process it all, something clicked. I think I'm going to take the job, I said. And maybe use it to start something. Foundation. For women like us. She smiled. About time. Laura, Ronald's sister, became my first client. She'd left an abusive marriage too, after watching my story unfold. The Phoenix Club helped her find a home. Garden. It turned out Ronald had even testified on her behalf against her husband. He was trying in his own quiet way to stop the cycle. 1 year after I walked out that front door, I stood on the porch of Laura's new cottage, surrounded by roses she'd planted herself. My emerald necklace, reset and glowing, caught the light. Not as a reminder of pain but of strength. The Phoenix Foundation became real. Real estate for women in transition. Emergency housing. Legal support. The licensing board added a mandatory module on financial abuse, with us writing the curriculum. And me. Had a new office. A new title. Grace Taylor. Transition Specialist. Helping women find their way home. To themselves. Because legacies aren't found in jewelry. Or houses. Or the lies people tell us about our worth. Legacies are found in moments. In truth. In every brave woman who dares to walk away from what breaks her. And build something entirely new. So if you're standing at your own door, wondering if you have the strength to leave, you do. And when you walk through it, we'll be here waiting to show you the way home.